The future of TV is here. We combine your favorite things like live TV, on-demand titles, and access to Netflix and HBO in one place with a voice remote that lets you find everything easily. Introducing AT&T TV. That's televisionary.
Available in select areas. Requires high-speed internet. Recommend minimum 8 megabytes per second per screen for optimal viewing. Limit 3 concurrent AT&T streams. Netflix and HBO subscriptions and Google login required. Restrictions apply.
TV party tonight! TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated, yes, to our favorite shows!
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast, TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show is The Boys, Season 1, brought to you by the good people at Amazon Prime. Sony Pictures Television, Amazon Studios, Kripke Enterprises, Point Grey Pictures, Original Film, Kickstart My Heart Entertainment, no, just Kickstart, KFL Night Sky Productions. Joining me tonight and talking about The Boys, 2019 Season 1, is the boy himself. Hello, boy. It's Jesse Starcher. How do you do, sir?
Hello, Mark Radulich. Oh, boy. You want to talk about a series that I've been chomping at the bit to discuss with you. I hated the fact that you did not get the chance to talk about the comic book with me. So I'm glad we get to at least talk about the TV series.
Yeah. I finished watching this a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, we didn't get to this when this dropped because I didn't understand how Amazon Prime worked. It just drops all the episodes at once, apparently, like Netflix does. Mm-hmm. So I didn't properly plan. I didn't properly schedule, is what happened, Jesse.
Oh my gosh! Did you give yourself 10 lashings for that?
I really did. I was living at my in-laws at the times, and when I saw that, and I was just fit to be tied and inconsolable, everybody in the house was like, "What the fuck is wrong with him?" And they're like, "You don't understand."
The Boys dropped all at once.
I was planning for December.
Oh, man.
But this is why I have made formal requests of all the television studios and streaming services. Just send me a file with all of the dates for episodes, please, so that I can plan accordingly. God damn. I also
check your Gmail.
I'm also trying to get all the boxing promoters and UFC and the WWE and AEW to all coordinate so that I'm not having to watch 50 things in a single day.
I understand that. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
But here we are. We're finally here. A little late to the party, but we're finally getting to it. So for all those people who are like, well, when are they going to talk about The Boys? Here we go.
Yeah.
So, Jesse, you and Gavin talked about The Boys on Monday, the comic book. Why don't you give us a little primer on what you learned about the comic, how it relates to the series in terms of, is it a direct adaptation, sort of a page-to-page? Is it sort of an inspired by? Tell me.
Okay. Yeah, The Boys are, it's pretty much the name of the team led by Billy Butcher, who is played by Carl Urban in the series. And this team in the comic is somewhat, at least a little bit superpowered and funded by the CIA. And the purpose of their existence is to keep superheroes in line. All right, and unfortunately, an incident happens where a young Scotsman by the name of not Simon Pegg, but Wee Huey, Huey has his wife, or excuse me, his girlfriend just tells him, that they just finally kind of let the 3 words slip, "I love you," and then she is immediately killed at a carnival, and thus sets a train of events into motion where the boys, Carl Urban, Billy Butcher, recruits Huey, and they go on a mission to, basically put some heroes in their place, and we learn a few things that are parallel to the series. Some of the background about Billy Butcher, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and I won't give that away right now. But there are definitely parallels between the series. So when you say page-to-page adaptation, not exactly, but there are some similarities. In the first 6 issues of what we read, it basically took us to, I think the ending was where there was a fight. I know there was a fight between the boys and a younger superhero team. Similar to like the New Warriors is probably the best thing if you're a Marvel fan. And some crazy stuff happens. Huey is reluctant, just like he is in the series, to become part of the boys. And when he ends up getting dosed up with a compound V, he ends up accidentally killing a superhuman. So it's Garth Ennis writes some dark stuff. Mark, you've been on a couple podcasts where we've discussed some dark Garth Ennis stuff, and it's the boys took it to another level because number one, it was Wildstorm Entertainment. The comic was gritty, it was hypersexualized, hyper violent, and just all sorts of gore everywhere. The first page is a guy whose face is getting stepped on and squished. That's the first page, okay? So they had to take that and adapt it into this. And I gotta say, they did a decent job because it could have went off really bad and just seemed like it was, just gore for gore's sake. And it wasn't. They told a decent story. Now, another Garth Ennis recent adaptation, Preacher. Now, I haven't watched any of that, but from what I understand, it's not been a good series. So I kind of had my fears as to what they were going to do with the boys, and I hadn't read it. I knew what it was. I knew what the concept was, but I hadn't read it until we just recently covered it on source material. However, I was kind of worried that, oh man, if we go down the Preacher route, it's not going to go over very well. And I was very, very surprised. I really liked what they did here.
So, Billy Butcher and Huey, though those are both characters from the books.
Yes.
The rest of the main characters here, Homelander, Starlight, Queen Maeve, A-Train,
The Deep,
let's see here, Black Noir. Are these all characters also from the book?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if Black Noir was. I think he was. Black Noir was in there. The Deep definitely looks a little bit different. Like he has kind of a Namor vibe in the TV series, and in the comic, you can only get to see him once. And he's obviously a throwaway joke character, sort of. And he's got like this big, deep diving helmet on, and he looks like a human, but he's just wearing this like old 1950s suit. You have no idea what his power set is. He doesn't look as cool as he does in the series, that's for sure. And one of the characters that's in the series, which I don't believe is in the book, I don't recall seeing him in the first 6 issues, Translucent. He was made up wholly for the series itself. So he's the invisible guy that they capture there in that first episode. And the rest of the boys, which are Mother's Milk, females of the species, I can't remember, I think they just call her the female, and Frenchie, those are all characters from the book. It's pretty faithful to what we have in the series compared to the book when it comes to characters and the violence.
Okay. So last question about the comic book compared to the series, and then we'll get into the series proper.
Yeah.
Which members of the 7 do they focus on in the book?
Pretty much the same ones you see here. Queen Maeve's in here. Homelander's in here. I'm trying to think. Really, there isn't a big mission against the Seven in the first 6. It's more about Billy trying to bring Huey in, and they warm up to the Seven by doing a mission against the Teenage Kicks. I think is the Teenage Kicks. I think is what they're called. And they do some really dirty stuff where they kind of use some blackmail techniques to kind of get the team to turn against each other because they're all depraved. They're all super. They may be superheroes in the limelight, but behind closed doors, there is some really, really bad goings on, and Billy Butcher uses that to his advantage. But the main thing Billy is focusing on is, I think at the second page of the comic, he looks up, he sees what I believe is the Seven going across the sky, and he just goes something along the lines as, I'm going to get you, fucker. So he's already on a mission to do something against at least the main superheroes, the Seven. But I honestly can't remember how it ended, other than the Teenage Kicks have to go. The Teenage Kicks have to kind of go in front of a live audience and kind of apologize for some stuff that was leaked to the press, and it gets interesting. They really don't dive into there's more in the series about the Seven than there definitely is in the first 6 issues of the comic book.
So the show itself, I would imagine, takes on elements that go further into the comic later down the line. Essentially, the entire first season is Billy Butcher hatching a revenge plot against specifically Homelander. I believe Billy Butcher, over the course of 10 episodes, is led to believe that Homelander killed his wife, whom... And I don't remember how much of this was stuff that he was aware of versus what is shown to the audience, but I know that he's aware. They come to the attention of Homelander at a Voight party, and I think she works for Voight, which is the company that essentially markets and promotes the Seven.
Now I'm gonna step in here and correct you. I think it's Vote.
Vote.
And the reason why you're calling it Voight is because you're probably getting it confused with Watchmen, but there is a reason why. I think Vote is pretty much based off of Voight from Watchmen. So,
okay.
All right. So, but anyway, go ahead.
So they come to so she works for Vote, and they come to the attention of Homelander, and she ends up having an affair with Homelander, and then she's disappeared. And what we come to find out is that she is pregnant with Homelander's child. We think that she died in childbirth, and that the child itself is also no more. But what we come to find out towards the very end of season 1 is that not only did the child live to be a healthy boy, but but Billy Butcher's wife is also still alive and is kind of in hiding with this child somewhere.
Yeah, man, big twist right there at the end,
which neither Homelander nor Billy Butcher found out about. But that is essentially the impetus for this television series. Is Billy Butcher was seemingly wronged by Homelander. The love of his life was taken from him, and now he's on a single-minded quest to bring down the Seven. And this is under the noble guise of these are shitty people abusing their powers and taking advantage of a hornswoggled public. But really, Billy Butcher is just is just an obsessed jerk.
Well, I mean, he's got a reason. I think you can't blame the guy if he believed like a superhero actually killed his wife, or raped his wife and killed her, or something like that, or resulted in her death. However, whichever way you want to take it, he's got. I mean, if he was absolutely in love with her and can't believe what happened, I can't blame the guy for wanting to get revenge.
Okay, there's getting revenge, and then there's being an asshat about it.
Okay, all right, I'll give you that, because he definitely is asshat about it.
And so you can contrast that with Huey Campbell, who
poor wee Huey.
who is played by Jack Quaid, and similar to Billy Butcher, he and his girlfriend profess their love to each other, and at the moment that she professes her love for him, she is exploded via speedster by the Flash analog A-Train.
So great. Because you're sitting there and everything is just turns into slow motion. She disappears and you're like, what is going on? And then you hear the explosion and you see like his face ripple from where the air bursts by him, and then the blood splatters on his face and you're like, oh no. And he's left there with her hands in his hands and up to about the forearm, and that's it.
Yeah.
The rest of her is just gone.
That's rough.
Oh man. And the sad thing about it is, and we see this later as the episode goes on, I mean, A-Train was his guy. A-Train was like one of his, he had the bobblehead, or the Funko Pop, I guess I should say. He had the Funko Pop in his room, and that was like one of his heroes, was A-Train. And then all of a sudden, this horrible thing happens. And does A-Train stop? Nope. A-Train's got to keep going.
Long enough to say, oops, my bad, and keeps running.
Yeah, you can tell something's wrong with him at first, because he's keeps saying, what's he keep saying? I can't stop. And then he puts his glasses on, boom, there he goes. And, Huey's got to try and figure out what just happened. And then, of course, the horrific scene of just realizing that the girl that I think he was just getting ready to move in with her, or vice versa, one or the other. And Huey is categorized. He's portrayed.
Characterized is the word you're looking for.
There you go. He's this guy who just won't commit to anything. He's this guy who, he's still living with his dad. He's a
nebbish fellow. Kind of a schlub. Nebbish.
Yeah. Nebbish. I would agree with that. He's just not motivated to do anything. Working at the electronics store, I think his girlfriend had to just basically keep bugging him about moving in with her. There was this, it just wasn't anything that motivated this man very much. And then this happens, and again, his character goes through a lot of stuff throughout this first season, and it's interesting to see how he changes and the decisions that he makes.
That whole interaction, if you could just draw a circle on it, is a great symbol for the modern feeling of helplessness. It's, it's sort of, I don't know the word I'm looking for here, but, it's symbolized in A-Train, who is this powerful being that Huey can't do anything about. That's where I'm getting this from. Huey can't do anything about A-Train. He can't stop him. He can't hurt him. He can't touch him. Okay? Mm-hmm. And if he tries, he'll get hurt himself. He'll probably die. And so this guy can create a terrible, tragic situation for this normal fellow. And there's nothing he can do about it. And the only recompense he gets is, here's a check for $45,000. Oops, we're sorry.
Yeah, like the corporate schlubs show up at his house, and they're like, the only thing he can think of is the fact that his girlfriend just got obliterated in front of his eyes. And after the funeral, they show up, and they're just, they're trying to basically pay him off, because Vogt has an image. Vogt, who funds the Seven, has an image that they have to keep up. And
This is
here's $40,000.
Yes, this is a great modern fable. Mm-hmm. Because this really does look at, and it's something that we talk about fairly regularly here on the Rattle Legend Broadcasting Network, whether it's Metal Hammer of Doom or TV Party or something, I think there's an undercurrent of people just feeling like the world is too big and our leaders are too strong, and I think this is why you have so many people who, and I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but I think this is why you have so many people who cling to like the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and guns or whatever. It's like the only thing that they have, the little lifeboat for them to just cling to, in the storm. to make them feel like they have some kind of power over their lives. Mm-hmm. Because everything just feels too big and too powerful, and you just feel like if you try to stand up and you try to speak, you get crushed. This is also why I think people go on Twitter rants.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that gives them that little bit of power.
Right.
Just what that at least gives them that sensation of being powerful in some way.
Every time my dad is screwed by some big corporation because they didn't hook up his cable box right or something, he is just on Twitter shaming those people.
Way to go, Dad.
But so when I look at the Huey versus A-Train, that I think is a symbol of that part of our culture right now, where people feel very, very small in this society and are grasping for any way of trying to get back in a semblance of power in their own lives, despite just this constant feeling of being cast adrift. Yeah. And so that's where we meet Huey, because now he's just out there. The A-Train has created this giant storm around him, and he's just sort of content to just drown, basically. He'll just tip over in his little lifeboat and drown, and that'll be the end of it. And then here comes Billy Butcher, who says, but what if I could give you your power back?
Yeah.
It's funny because you hear a lot of the phraseology that I'm using is something that you hear about with women taking their power back or whatever. But I don't think at all that that's just confined to women. I think it's used in a very particular way, and we'll get to Starlight taking her power back in just a minute. Mm-hmm. But I think it can be applied in a more grander way. And so here you have Billy Butcher, who extends his hand to Huey and says, what if the world doesn't have to be so big and so cruel and so monolithic and impervious? What if there's a chink in the armor and I could help you exploit it, get some of your power back, make you feel like you can live in this world with these godlike creatures and not feel so put upon?
Yeah. It's interesting to think about what we have in here are regular, everyday human beings with an agenda to try and take out some superheroes. Normally, the human beings would be considered the villains, which is, the neat juxtaposition here. You have, but of course we realize that the superheroes are not exactly heroes.
Well, sure. What is the one structure that everyone kind of points to? Like when you talk, mark your bingo cards. When you talk wrestling, everyone says, "Oh, Hulk Hogan wrestling." That even might have gone out of fashion now. People say, "Oh, I know wrestling. Steve Austin and The Rock." Stone Cold. Similar thing here. When people point to, comic books, Superman and Lex Luthor.
Yep.
So you have, and when you think about the character of Lex Luthor, isn't that what motivated him? What drove him is that he had this great superior intellect, and then down came this jock from outer space, and he's like, I don't want to live in a world where you're the superior man.
Yeah, I was watching some YouTube videos to prep for this, just to kind of jog my memory, and I came across one that had a comment that got over 3,000 likes. The comment was, "This series makes me truly understand Lex Luthor and Bruce being afraid of superheroes." Yeah. So, it's true. If they actually existed, which I think if you were to take a look at a lot of TV series and a lot of movies, I would say that this one probably depicts as close to as superheroes existing in our world, how the media would be how the media would portray them, how the corporations would get behind them, or at least try to have a hand in them, how corporate politics would work, how politics would work with superheroes. That is examined all throughout this TV series, and I think they do a great job of making it feel like, you need, if this was something to actually happen, then you need to be afraid. You don't need to be. It's going to be fear. It's not going to be jubilation, and the fact that we have somebody that can save a plane that is falling from the sky or whatever. It's the fact that they have the ability to do this, and if they didn't want to and they wanted to do something else, who the hell's going to stop them?
Yeah, what I loved about this series, the portrayal of the Seven, was that it really does. What oftentimes becomes a problem with comic book heroes is how over the top benevolent some of these people are. I mean, how Jordan occasionally blows up Coast City, but
snaps a couple Green Lanterns' necks.
You know, it happens. Hal Jordan needs some help.
That made that book that much more interesting. People hated it, people loved it, but the thing is that you brought a different dimension to that character that got people's attention.
Yeah,
and I mean, we talked about that on source material. Was it something that ruined the character? For Pat, it did. For other people, it added another dimension to it, and some liked it, some didn't.
But that's the God thing, and I really, you got to hear me on this because I'm very serious, like more serious than I tend to be on these shows. We are, as a society, throughout the history of time, in search of God. There are people, more people than not, that need something from beyond to believe in, or what is the point of going through as hard as life can be? And we're talking 2019. Life is not great, but it's so much easier than it was 100 years ago.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they had it better than the people 100 years before them. So let's not kid ourselves here. When your biggest problem is that you might have gotten fired from your job at NWA Power for saying a shitty thing. But
how long was we working there anyway? Like maybe 2 months?
It's 5 fucking episodes. This happened in. But you're not having to deal with, like, I don't know, the bubonic plague. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, those are two wild extremes here. But my point is that it is ingrained in the society. I had a great book that I read that talked about the God gene. That we are genetically predisposed as human beings, as social creatures, to seek out God.
Okay.
Do you understand what I mean by that?
I would assume that what you just said made sense. So,
okay.
I mean, we're genetically, coded to go and try and believe in something that may or may not be there.
Greater than ourselves in order to give our life meaning and purpose. And you have the odd duck that can find purpose in something else, somewhere else, but ultimately it boils down to the most common denominator, or at least common denominator, which is that the thing that gets you through is something greater than you, whether it's quote unquote God or a belief in something else, or there's a great, even if it's just, I'm just here for my children. It is my children that pull me through. I don't believe in God, and I don't believe in, spirits or anything else like that, but I believe in my kids and my duty, and I'm duty bound to them. That sort of thing. There's got to be something that pulls you through, that makes you get up from day to day, other than just the grind of life. And so what superheroes represent, I think, in especially now in modern culture, is that desire for people to seek God in the pages of comic books. These are our modern, they talk about this with Star Wars. They talk about this with the Marvel movies. Like, these are our modern myths and fables.
Yeah.
This is where our gods live. And you know that in many ways, the concepts of the written God are man-made. People wrote these books. Mm-hmm. They wrote these stories. They wrote these fables. These came from a place. There's a great book. I talk about it all the time on here. The Laughing Jesus, which talks about the Jesus myth being shared throughout a number of different cultures, but Jesus' name changes. There's a guy, he's born, he performs great deeds, he's persecuted, and then he's executed. This is a thing that shows up in different areas of culture throughout time. So it is, I think, so when someone like Pat sees Hal Jordan, I just went from the Laughing Jesus to Emerald fucking Dawn. So do you see, people, how the Jesus myth and the Emerald Dawn are the fucking same? No,
welcome to Bible study with Mark Radulich. I can see how someone like Pat, who throws his sort of faith and belief behind comic book characters and props them up as gods, and then you turn a page and your god is seen as fallen, as Green Lantern does in Emerald Dawn, and you're like, well, now I'm an atheist.
Rip.
There is no God. Gonna listen to 9 Inch Nails and cut myself. No,
That took a dark turn.
but I'm now making light of it. But do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I think that where The Boys works, kind of fitting that back into the conversation, is that you have these people, these fallible, shitty, everyday schmoes who came from the same nature-nurture environments as all the rest of us, but they got given extraordinary powers through sheer randomness. Mm-hmm. And then now, how do you deal with that? As a society, as a regular person, as a culture? And that's what The Boys, just talking about the television show now, that's what The Boys explores through this tale of revenge.
Yeah. You go back and if you listen to the Source Material Comics podcast, we talk about very similar things, as that's pretty much what this series does, is it makes you look at the, if you have somebody with ultimate power, the key is, and if you're a Spider-Man fan, you know what this is. With great power comes great responsibility.
Or the other way of looking at it, absolute power corrupts. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
That's right. So you have a situation here where the superheroes, many of the superheroes, because we know of one for sure that is not. It definitely comes from a wholesome background, but the rest of these 7 are not exactly from a wholesome background. They've been in the game a lot longer than Starlight has, so you could tell some of them are very jaded. Some of them are very, I would say, they have a warped morality. And if you give somebody powers, just because they're powerful does not make them virtuous, does not make them heroes.
Right.
They're still human like me and you. They're still driven by human desire. They're still driven by those wants and those needs. And now if they have the power to get whatever they want, what's going to stop them from taking it? And you have that. It's not like superheroes are just running wild in this show. You have a lot of corporate backing, and hey, listen, if there's a big villain anybody can root against, that's big business. All right? So votes got you see the corporate politics throughout this whole series where Elizabeth Shue comes in playing Madeline Stillwell. You see her working things in the background. She's the lady. I mean, she has no powers other than the fact she's in a powerful position, and she's the one that practically controls the 7. She's the one that tells them to go do this and go do that. So again, it's human desire that people need to worry about when it comes to where these superheroes are coming from. Are they virtuous? Are they heroic? Well, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes in a real world adaptation of a superhero.
So I want to talk about Ghostbusters 2 for a second.
Ooh, I haven't talked about this for a few.
The exposition dump in Ghostbusters 2 talks about the time after Ghostbusters 1 and before Ghostbusters 2 where we find our titular heroes. And it talks about how even though the Ghostbusters were able to drive back the Destroyer, who took the form of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, like you do, when they crossed the streams and they closed the gate and Gozer went home or whatever the fuck he did, and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man done blew up and got marshmallow goo everywhere. Mm-hmm. The city billed the Ghostbusters and they went bankrupt and out of business.
Money. Money, money, money.
money, money, money. And so, there's an argument to be had for a corporate structure building a shell around the superheroes. If you go out there, if you're Homelander and you are virtuous and you are benevolent and you save a plane full of passengers when the plane is crashing and someone gets injured while you're in the process of saving them, and then they sue you. They sue you, the individual.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Ridiculous.
Right, and that's the world we live in.
That's right. It's a legality and what is the word? I had a word there to describe our
Liability.
society.
Litigious.
Not liability. Litigious. There you go. I knew it started with an L. We're a litigious society, and man, that's all corporations deal in.
Right.
That it really is. They obviously a corporation that sees superheroes and hey, how about we get together and we fund a Justice League, our very own Justice League, and imagine we could send them on talk shows and they're just raking in all this money.
Right.
I mean, one of the interesting episodes is where they show Translucent on the Tonight Show. They show the big race that's at a football stadium for A-Train and some other speedster, and it's all just fan-driven, media-driven frenzy. And I'm sure that there's a lot of money being generated because of that. So, again, big business is obviously that's not going away anytime soon. And they would definitely have their hands right up the old puppet of the Justice League if that was something that actually existed today.
But I think my point, my further point is that it's very easy to say, oh, vote's an evil corporation, but I think you would have to build some sort of framework around these guys, because if they were just running loose, I mean, when you think about, again, going back to traditional comics, look at Spider-Man. Again, a benevolent fellow using his powers for good, and then there's a newspaper raking him through the coals every day.
Yeah.
That frames him as the villain to sell newspapers. I mean, it's enough to drive a man crazy. And so what Vote does is you don't have to worry about something like that happening. We'll control the narrative. We'll put out press releases, and we'll create marketing events, and we'll make sure that your image is pure, so that there's no Daily Bugle shaming you in the papers and framing you as a villain, and you can just focus on saving people.
Yeah,
so
you need that PR presence,
right? So there's both good and bad in Vote, and I feel like the show doesn't do the best job of making that point. I think they show it, but they always show it, but everything is so covered in slime. Like, I don't think the show makes the argument that this is kind of a necessary evil. Vote's just an evil corporation. And then as the series sort of unfolds, you find out that these were not acts of God that created superheroes, that these were in fact manufactured through better living through pharmaceuticals.
Compound V, was that what it was called?
Yeah, Compound V. Like they just distributed to random children, and then they got a variety of powers, from horns sticking out of your elbows to Homelander.
I was watching a top scenes from the show, and I think within the top 5, maybe in the top 3, was Billy Butcher and Mother's Milk finding that baby, and then they get cornered, and so the baby has apparently superpowers. This is the time they figure out that they're being manufactured. So in order to escape, they grab the baby. The baby opens up its eyes, and it proceeds to lay out these blue laser beams that cuts all the adversaries in half. And he puts the baby back down. He's like, be a good boy. I don't have to come and stomp you. And then they leave. That's a great bit. But it's just kind of showing what you're talking about there. They are trying to put this drug into young, babies basically, and then grow and manufacture these superheroes. More superheroes, more money.
More money, more problems, as they say in Charlie's Angels.
Anyway, it's true. Kristen Stewart said that. So yeah, we've been kind of going down a long winding road here, but so the plot takes us through a couple of different plot lines. You have one plot line involving Homelander and Elizabeth Shue and Vogt, where they are creating situations where they are manipulating Congress into voting the Seven into the military.
Yeah.
So essentially, don't buy bombers and tanks. Buy contracts with Vogt. And we will send superheroes into the Middle East to kill terrorists.
Yeah. And one of the ways that they're doing that is by giving, I think, Compound V to the enemy and allowing the enemy to create their own superheroes. But, of course, they're aware of this, and that's the whole plan, is so that the military will now be upset and concerned. And, we do need superheroes.
I think that was Homelander going off on his own who did that.
Oh, was it? Oh, and he found out about it at that point. Okay.
I think they spend a couple of episodes trying to schmooze some congressmen into making this happen. But, they talk about, this is getting in the weeds a little bit, but if I remember correctly, they were talking about how some of these people have allegiances to, like, the Grummins and Boeings of the world. I don't know if you know what Grumman is, but Grumman was a military contractor, built planes and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
Military contractor.
Got it.
Sold the military various vehicles and whatnot. And I know that because Grumman had a plant on Long Island. It was one of the big places of employment.
Okay.
So yeah, Grumman, Boeing. I think the more modern one that everyone thinks of when you think of the Bush administration is not Enron. That's the energy company. Halliburton.
Oh yeah. I'm a military contractor. Yep.
Yeah. So don't buy from them. Buy from Vogt, and we'll send Homelander and Queen Maeve and all these people in there. And I feel, and they're like, no, we have loyalty to them. We have, it's not as easy as all that. And so they're not getting anywhere with Congress. And finally, Homelander's just like, fuck this noise. Gives Compound V to a terrorist. Then publicly deals with said terrorist. And they're like, see, now we've created a need.
Mm-hmm.
Supply and demand.
They'll need us now. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that part of it, which then bleeds later on into the things kind of come to a head. That plot line starts intersecting with the Billy Butcher dead wife plot line because of the central figure being Homelander.
Yeah.
You have the boys are essentially, once things get going and they've put the team together, and so there's a lot of early episodes and scenes just dealing with getting Frenchie and Mother's Milk onto the show and figuring out what the game plan is going to be.
Yeah. Their big first I guess endeavor is after the capture of Translucent. They've got to figure out what to do with them, because basically you can't let Translucent go, or the Seven are going to be straight up your ass. And then they make a decision. They can't kill him. They try to. They can't kill him. So the way that they decide to kill him is by knocking him out and then shoving a bomb up his ass. Which I want to talk about just real quick. I won't go too long on it, but I think it was a great bit of imagery when Translucent gets loose and Huey has the detonator in his hand. Huey is not made, again, like I said, this is a shiftless kind of kid that doesn't, he hasn't made a big decision in his life. And when Translucent talks to him and says, I'm leaving right now, Translucent has got loose. Huey's got to he's trying to talk him like, no, you don't want to do that. And as Translucent says, I'm done, I'm out, and he takes off. It's really interesting because Huey looks over and he sees this poster on the wall. They're like, I don't know where they're at. They're in some kind of a food factory or something, an abandoned food factory. But he sees this poster on the wall, and the poster is of this little baby who had just gotten done eating spaghetti, and the spaghetti was smeared all over its face and all over its hair, so it was really messy. But it immediately took him back to what happened on that day that he lost Robin. And without a second thought, he looks over and presses the button and then proceeds to explode old translucent from the ass inside out. So it was a great moment. It was a moment where you saw that Huey took that into his hands. In the comic, he's not as direct, and he's definitely not as take the reins, I guess you would say. He accidentally kills somebody in the comic book. In this one, he makes the decision to do so. So I like that about that. And then we're off and running. Okay, now they've killed Translucent. Now they've got to make the next move and see what the Seven are going to do. So I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
In the early part of it, it's just trying evidence of no good Nickry by the Seven. And that's how they, and that intersects with the A-Train plot. The A-Train is trying to get more Compound V because he's trying to be faster, because he's trying to maintain his spot on the Seven. He has to be the fastest man alive. So he has to take Compound V, and it's the Compound V that made him run so fast that he lost control and ran into Robin. So once they kind of deal with the translucent issue, the next part of it is this mystery of, well, what kind of shifty business is A-Train up to? And they find out that it's Compound V. They find out what Compound V does. And then it's like, oh, well, this is the thing. We can now expose these frauds for being manufactured weapons and not receivers of God's gift, as they've been portrayed. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it deals with that, and there's a natural antagonism between A-Train and Huey that kind of comes to a head at the end of the series, which I think ultimately they somewhere along the line they find this one particular person who's been given Compound V, this Asian gal who's kind of feral.
Female, yeah.
Yeah.
That's her name.
A female, okay.
The female.
Right, okay. Yes, Kimiko. And so between her and Huey, they are able to take out A-Train. I think they break his leg or whatever. And he's able to get a measure of revenge on A-Train. I forget how that all concludes. Do you remember?
No, off the top of my head. I remember they run into him. Don't they run into him in a warehouse? And Starlight's there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, this all comes to a head at the very end in the warehouse, where again they take out A-Train. I think they end up shooting him, and Starlight covers for them, and they take off.
There we go. Yeah. Now, speaking of Starlight, why don't you talk about that little plot
line? I was getting there. So the A-Train plot line and the early Compound V stuff coincide with our character who sort of plays the opposite of Queen Maeve. Well, Queen Maeve is your burnt-out Wonder Woman analog. She's somebody who is disillusioned. She's been playing the game a long time, and she's kind of seen the rise and fall of Homelander. Compared to her, you have Starlight, I believe is her name. Mm-hmm. And she has utterly bought into the superhero thing.
Oh, yeah.
She believes she has been touched by an angel. She's trying to do her level best to do good. And she is... It's an interesting thing in as far as her story goes, because she is just brought low episode after episode after episode.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk about the actress who plays her, Erin Moriarty. She pulls off wholesome and just, downright country good-hearted so well. And I was so pulling for her. Oh, man. Am I cutting out, or is that you? Because I think I keep dropping her. One of us do. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. What you might have been picking up was my stupid echo.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anyway, so yeah, It's kind of sad to see her meet her heroes. She turns around after she just meets and gets into the Seven headquarters, and she's talking to the Deep, and she says, I kind of had a crush on you. And she turns around, and there stands the Deep with his pants down.
Do you like it? Huh?
Yeah, what do you think? And it's just this girl. You said she bought into it. She had powers. She was on a team, and she just seemed like the hero type. And she worshipped the Seven, just like I'm sure many other people do.
I got to jump in here. You didn't watch The Deuce, right?
The Deuce. You've told me about this before. Go ahead.
So The Deuce is by the guy who did The Wire, David Simon. It's 3 seasons. It takes place from I think I want to say the early 70s to like the mid 80s.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, is the timeline, and it's about the rise of porn in New York City.
Yes. Okay, you've mentioned this before.
So in the 3rd season of The Deuce, Maggie Gyllenhaal is in a diner, and she's like a feminist porn auteur. Okay, she makes artsy porn for girls.
Artsy porn.
Yeah. Well, I shouldn't even say for girls. She makes like artsy feminist porn. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
For what that's worth, that's what she does. That's her character. And she's in the diner, and she's watching a group of guys kind of harass a waitress. And they're just being goofy motherfuckers. They're in there, they're eating steak and eggs, and they're not being like, they're not the trucker from Superman 2. I don't know if you're...
Yes, I do know that guy. I remember that guy clearly.
Yeah, they're not that bad. I think they're earnestly thinking they're funny. You know, the type where portrayed with a different light on them, they're clearly shitheads, but in their own world at that time, they think they're being genuinely funny and charming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so this waitress is dealing with them. She's just trying to do her job and take their order. And the one lead schmuck is like, "What's good here?" And he's like, "It's all good." And they're going back and forth, and he keeps awkwardly flirting with her. And she's trying to flirt back just enough to get tips, but not go overboard because this is humiliating.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, she's like, "You can have whatever on the menu." And he drops the menu for her to stand on.
Oh, come on, dude.
Yeah. And so she stands on it and goes kind of like a ta-da pose. And the guys uproariously laugh. And, and they make their order, and she can go on about her day.
Okay.
And so she walks over to Maggie Gyllenhaal, and she's like, "Why do you put up with that?" And she's like, "Honey, I work for tips. What am I supposed to do?" Yeah. And so later on, when there's a lot of exploration of the value of women in this show, given that it's, given the subject matter is pornography. And there's a line about every day a woman has a price tag hanging off her ass. And no matter, and there's a lot of talk about no matter how far women go in this world, no matter how much they accomplish, no matter how much they are treated as equals, there's always this undercurrent of, we're patronizing you. You're really just seen as sex objects.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is pretty much her situation in this show. Where she has powers, she's powerful. I mean, I think the only one that nobody can touch is Homelander, but but she's as powerful as anybody else outside of Homelander in the Seven, as near as I could tell. Mm-hmm. And she's pretty, and she's a good person, and she's a Christian, and she has powers, and ultimately all the Deep saw her as is a cum bucket.
I liken it much.
Am I wrong?
No, I can't. I'm not going to deny you there. I very much likened it to an actress heading to Hollywood.
Yeah.
this is somebody who has all these dreams, all these aspirations, and when she
I've
gets
done Shakespeare in the Park, and I've done, and I went to Juilliard, and I can play the violin, and I bring all of these skills, and I've done some off-Broadway stuff, and if you give me an opportunity to do this, I know I can, and you know I can, and the producer says, that's fine, suck my dick, and you've got the part.
Yep. Very much like Hollywood. And not only that, she gets in there, and the other instance I remember clearly is when they modify her costume because sex sells.
Yes.
She doesn't want to be that. She doesn't want to be that, but that's Hollywood right there. That's your image.
Occasionally there's a clickbait article that kind of floats around, and it always cracks me up. And it's like the 10 worst costumes in comic books. And inevitably, it's a piece of fabric just barely covering the girl's tits. Like, this isn't something you'd fight in.
Nope.
Like Joanna Jojetrick, or whatever the fuck her name is, the Karate Hottie, Michelle Waterson, Ronda Rousey. They don't fucking show up to the UFC cage in, like, tassels and a fucking miniskirt.
Nope.
You know?
No. It's physically pretty much impossible. And when you take a look at that, I wondered if there was maybe a sly commentary on 90s comics in there. And Gavin actually mentioned that in our episode, where he said that, this is taking 90s comics to a different level. And
it sounds like it's taking 90s comics to task.
Well, yeah, that was kind of their commentary on what was going on, because here you have Sue Storm. All right, let's take Sue Storm, and she was pretty much a prim and proper lady for quite a while, a member of the Fantastic Four, and then in the 90s you get the Fantastic Four boob window on her because sex sells, and we gotta make her sexy.
Look at how Power Girl gets drawn.
Yeah.
She has double D retard tits and a boob window.
And that is creators making a decision that we have to play off of, some 13 or 14-year-old boy hormones here.
Sure.
Or
34 or 35-year-old hormones.
Yeah.
Or 45-year-old. Look, tits are ageless. Let's not be ageist about it.
Good point.
Every man of every age loves a set of boobs and a boob window.
That's right. So yeah, there's definitely a commentary going on there about. It may not be comic book related. It may just be Hollywood and entertainment related altogether. So
Michael Bay, right? Mm-hmm. Michael Bay made a movie about toy robots that transform into vehicles. Okay.
Transformers.
Yes.
Just in case anybody out there was confused.
But that's the thing. But I say it that way because I'm trying to make a point. So it's like Michael Bay is tasked with, he's handed these toys and say, these toys, see these ones that turn into cars and these ones that turn into jets and this one that turns into a gun, make a movie with these. And he goes, okay. And we're gonna build big monster trucks and fast cars, and it's gonna be very evocative of like the Fast and the Furious. And we'll put Shia LaBeouf in there, and we're gonna put big, gruff military men shooting guns, and it's gonna be explosions, and it's gonna be fucking awesome, man. And there's gonna be Megan Fox showing her ass off.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we gotta have Meg, who has no character. Megan Fox is ass and titties. Ass and titties. That's her whole character. And every subsequent movie after that with a female lead was ass and titties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we get to watch Starlight go through this, these motions where they don't just say, hey, we're changing your costume. I mean, she resists. She's like, what are you talking about? And that happens.
Fucking so.
That happens. People have to deal with that all the time when they're in the entertainment industry. Right. She didn't sign up for entertainment. She signed up to be a hero.
Right.
And that's what I think, that's
and
a lot of people.
They don't do that when you join the police force. They're like, all the men, here's your pants and here's your shirt. All the women, here's your bra.
Yeah.
You're just wearing a bra. You don't do that. They don't do that with women in the military that I'm aware of. It's like,
curious if there would be more crime. If all the police, the police ladies were just wearing bras. I mean, people would be getting arrested on purpose.
Just as an aside, sexy police porn is always the funniest thing to me because all the women always have their shirts like tied in knots.
Can't be doing that. Come on, this isn't realistic.
It just takes you out of the story. Is my point.
Oh,
Like, I'm willing to believe a female cop might pull a guy over, get him out of the car, and immediately go down on him mid writing a ticket. Sure, who hasn't done that?
Okay, sure,
or has it happened to him? But but she would at least have her uniform appropriate. You know what I mean? She wouldn't be having her midriff showing. Is my point.
There's lines we won't cross.
Sure, I'm just saying, make believable porn. It's a very strange message you get out of this podcast. Like,
yes.
I like what he's saying about feminism, but then he brings up porn a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Don't know what's going on here.
So she's like the Me Too analog. It's like, I bring to this team everything the men bring, but I'm still objectified.
Yeah.
And then what's made worse is that if she tells, then she's going to be slut-shamed.
Yeah, and again, it has that whole Hollywood vibe. I mean, we've experienced a lot of stuff here recently in regards to Hollywood whistleblowing.
No. Me Too's over. I heard it on YouTube last night.
Really?
Yes, 3 women on the Midnight's Edge Toxic Femininity podcast said the Me Too is over. That was all beginning of the year stuff.
I had no idea that there was an expiration date on that. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, we can go back to abusing women according to Toxic Femininity from Midnight's Edge. It's good. It's fine now. That's it. Me Too's over.
Hey, males, we've got the all clear.
The storm has passed. Fucking Christ. Anyway, I like Midnight's Edge, but some of their commentary, it's a bit of a head scratcher. Anyway, so she has a very sad story, and she kind of bell curves out of it, though. She starts to rise up towards the end of the series. Along the way, her and Hugh, this is important to talk about, her and Hugh develop a relationship, and Hugh is then put in this position of he genuinely likes her and wants to be good to her and sees value in her as a person and as a woman, but he also has an allegiance to the boys who need her for information or for access to certain individuals who have information, and so Hugh is using this woman left and right. And he is conflicted, and so there's a lot of that going on in the show, which makes for some good tension and drama.
Yeah, you're pulling for these two because they are the heroes. If you're going to say anybody's a hero in this, it's going to be Starlight and it's going to be Huey. These are the guys that you're rooting for, and to see them come together, they're having a relationship, and you're just like, and they get along great. How can you not pull for them? And then it's going to be a point where Billy Butcher wants to take down the 7, and somebody's going to have to make a decision. Either Starlight, I'm sure, is very much disenfranchised with the 7, so I don't know if it's going to be too hard to turn her to do something against them. But it is her hopes and her dreams, and maybe she has plans to change how things are done there. But on the other hand, you have Huey, who he may turn on the boys. You never know. So it definitely adds to the tension now because we have a whole other layer of a relationship going on, and who's going to do what for who. I can't remember if at the end of this do they break up at the end of this series, or do they kind of they come to a resolution? Because she finds out, right? She finds out that he is associated with Billy Butcher and is doing some. Okay,
they initially kind of break up, and she's mad at him, and there's a lot of I want to please let me explain myself kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I think at the because she saves him at the end, so they at least have kind of an understanding. I think she sees the forest for the trees, in that they are here. She realizes that the Seven are a malevolent bunch, or at least some of them are. Certainly, she has her issues with the Deep, and then I think she comes to realize that Homelander is a bit of a tyrant. She comes to an understanding with Queen Maeve, but but it's an understanding of where Queen Maeve is like, yeah, don't be like me. I gave everything I had to this, and I am strip mine dry. So maintain your integrity, I think is the lesson there. And Black Noir is just sort of a gag character.
Yeah, he doesn't exactly. There isn't a whole lot of focus on him. I mean, he does have a few things that kind of pop up, but I think he meets the female in the streets. I think it was her, and seemingly beats her at first, but she heals right back up and she's okay. So, real quick about the Deep. I know we talked about the horrible thing that he did to Starlight, but it was interesting because they don't just stop there with the character. As she comes out and she comes out in front of God and everybody. I think they're at a Christian rally, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
And she calls him out on it,
right?
Which is interesting. Again, she's the whistleblower for, and this PR firm now has to scramble and figure out how they're going to handle that, which is very similar to what they did with the Teenage Kicks in the book. But they don't just take the Deep off of the show. I mean, they still show what this guy has to go through. He gets relegated to basically the Great Lakes Avengers.
Yes.
Which is hilarious. They basically put him somewhere in Cleveland or Akron or something, and he's he's with this B team. But do you remember the heist with the dolphin?
Oh, yeah, where the dolphin goes through the fucking windshield.
And then gets hit by a fucking truck. And you just watch him as he's talking to the dolphin the whole way there, and you're like, oh, this is almost kind of sweet. And then the fucking dolphin gets killed. And then he is raped in his own hotel room. I guess you would consider it raped. I mean,
if you say no and she says you're gonna...
Give me them gills, baby.
Give me them gills. It's rape, sir.
Yeah,
it's sexual assault.
He gets his
comeuppance. No means no, even if you're a bastard.
Yeah, even if you're a son of a bitch, talking whatever.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, anyway, I thought it was interesting that we stuck with that guy and we kind of,
I think that's an important lesson. Just let me say that again. No means no, even if you've been the guy saying yes.
That's right.
I feel like it's like, oh, well, you were the rape, so you deserve to be raped because suddenly we've gone biblical in this society and everybody's living with an eye for an eye. Forgiveness? What's that? I want vengeance. All right. Hashtag vengeance.
Wait, yeah. And I mean, with the female, which really her character is very similar in the comic book. She's just a savage. My goodness, she doesn't talk a whole lot at all. I don't think she even talks in the series. She's just almost this superpower killer. She's the only superpowered person on the boys' team. The rest of them all seem to be. At some point, I bet you in season 2, somebody's taking some Compound V. They're getting shot up, and they're going to be doing some battling. But they did say the end of this episode, and I did not know this because I've only read the first 6 issues. But they did say that the end of this series, where we talked about Billy looking up, seeing his wife, and I don't know, I don't think it's his son, but her kid, I guess you'd say, and
yeah, it's her and Homelander's.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in the book at all, and I assume that when they say that means that doesn't happen in the series at all. So they are leaving it on an ending that is got a lot of question marks. So,
anything else that I just want to talk about the plane scene for a second because I've read some reviews on this and I've seen some YouTube videos and people got very stuck on that, and it was a great example of the reality of people with these powers, because in the comic books they always do the impossible and try, Flash runs himself to death
as I believe, was what happens in Crisis.
Yes, turns into a costume full of bones. Yeah.
Yeah, in order to save the multiverse, he runs so fast that he disintegrates, basically. Superman died saving the Earth from doomsday. They always they do the impossible, and one of the things I always find fun about doing reviews with Robert Winfrey is him pointing out like the physics of things.
The physics. Yep.
That don't work that way. And so that was a great. So you don't necessarily have a situation where he went into it trying to murder a plane full of people to make a point. But Queen Maeve is like, do this. He's like, yeah, science doesn't work that way. I'll die.
Exactly. And I remember when that scene occurred, I was going, he's right. I mean, is it Superman Returns where Superman stops Lois Lane's plane from, crashing down into the ground by flying out in front of it and by holding it by its nose, okay? Yep. I remember specifically in Shazam, accidentally causes a bus to fall off of a bridge.
Yeah, he's
and the
doing
way he catches
lightning from my hands.
The way he catches it is he catches it on its windshield.
Right.
Physics does not fucking work like that.
Right.
Okay? That's not the way it works. So I applaud the boys for actually saying, okay, there's no way to stop this plane. Even if I am superpowered, there's no way I could actually stop this thing from crashing.
Right.
And as heroic as we see it happen, or as beautiful as it happens in the comic books, unfortunately, the real world doesn't work like that. And again, that is another good reason why this series feels more down to earth than any other superhero show.
It makes me think of Luke Cage. I think it's season 1 where he gets shot, and they've got to, they've got to do some life saving processes with him, but they can't penetrate his. Yeah, they can't penetrate his skin, so they can't do. It's like needles are breaking. They're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, you're kind of fucked.
But the other side of that was. He's like, there's nothing I can do to save this plane. And she's like, well, save some of the passengers or fly them out of here. And he's like, no. No matter what I do, someone's going to talk about what happened here, what they saw. And people are like, oh, I won't. He's like, shut up or I'll kill you all. But someone's going... he makes a cow... And I was thinking about this. There's a line in Fight Club about how... motor companies, car companies, do math that says, if the car has a glitch and some sort of mechanical failure, they'll do a math equation, and if the cost of a recall is more than the payout for a potential lawsuit, they won't do the recall. Have you ever seen Fight Club?
I remember Fight Club. It's been a while, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And I was thinking about that during that whole plane scene about, the cold calculus of a business decision.
That's not the... Yep.
Well, I could save some of these people, but ultimately it's going to end badly for me, so fuck it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no reason to make the effort because it's just going to cause more problems.
Right.
There's, just go ahead and let it go down. Nobody's going to talk. I did what I could. I don't think it's in the TV series. I think it's in the book, but there's a point where Billy Butcher sits down and he talks to Huey. He's like, look, he goes, do you know, he says something very similar to what you just said. Do you know the casualty rate, or not the casualty rate? It was something along the lines of when a SWAT team makes a decision to go in, there's an optimal casualty rate. Okay? And he says with superheroes, it's way higher because the optimal casualty rate is, from what I understand, they were trying to say it can be spun a certain way to where these casualties were. So it's okay to do whatever you need to do, just so long as the job gets done. We'll spin it however we need to. So yeah, he's Homelander's in that plane, which completely his fault because his dumbass heat vision destroyed the controls, and then he makes a decision. Well, we're not saving anybody, and it's great to see Queen Maeve, who, as jaded as she is, she's genuinely concerned about saving these people.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like actually seeing her not be as cynical as the rest of them. So. It was an interesting scene, and again, it's just more mounting evidence that Homelander is a scumbag. Homelander is a scumbag. But he's a layered scumbag because we learn about his history, how he was brought up. That's touched on a little bit. And that's the neat thing about this. They're not just one-dimensional. They do a good job of adding layers and kind of being able to understand, well, yeah, this is, the Deep definitely is a shitbag. But he's got his own problems.
Right.
Considering he's the Aquaman of the Justice League. He don't get no respect, sir. Don't get no respect.
They always put me near lakes or rivers or something.
So
I laughed at that. That whole scene is probably one of my favorites, just because of the subtlety and the acting. So he's just sexually assaulted this woman. Mm-hmm. And she now has to partner up with him. So he's just gross, and the whole thing is just skeevy. And meanwhile, he's so disconnected from it. It's like, yeah, I forced my cock down your throat. Move on. .org.
Gosh.
Just fucking stop being a crier. Don't be a whiner. And me, because I got bigger problems here. Why do I always have to do the water crimes? I laughed my ass off at that.
And she could easily kill him. But, the pressure and, of course, the way it would look and all this stuff is just, she's a new girl in all of this.
Right.
There's probably a part of her thinking, well, this is the way it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Obviously, she gets past that pretty quickly.
I think there's something for everybody in this show. And, it's like, you would think, that, especially with the marketing of this, it's another superhero show, it's another Avengers. But this is a show that is very much about a kind of a snapshot of current society, and there are analogs and there are parallels, and obviously there were no real superheroes in the world, but the show isn't about quote unquote superheroes and saving people. There's all kinds of other stuff going on here. There, like I said, there's revenge, and there's dealing with powerlessness, and there's just manipulation and intrigue. There's the Me Too thing happening. There's there's gender biases. There's so much. The show is just filled with so many themes that are relevant to modern society right now, that I really think that if somebody who wouldn't necessarily sit down and watch a Marvel movie because those are dumb, or watch a DC movie because those are depressing, would actually really enjoy this. Yeah. If you can get past some of the, girls exploding and whatnot.
Yeah, you're going to have to be able to stomach some gore. But there's, like I said, one of the more real superhero shows on TV at this time, in my opinion. Season 1 took me by surprise. I was able to sit down and watch it with my wife, and she enjoyed it. So I'm sure that...
Is she a big fan of the Marvel movies?
She'll watch them, but she's not a big fan. I mean, she'll watch them, but that's about as far as it'll go.
That's why I said that, because I wanted to see if Mindy fit into my thought of even people who are not huge Marvel fans will still enjoy this.
Oh yeah. This has more. Just like you said, there's so much for everybody, and I think every story that's being told here, there's an element of humor. There's an element of intrigue, and there's an element that keep everybody interested. Every storyline is pretty interesting, and it's more like, okay, it's definitely not your DC Arrowverse. This is more like your Law and Order.
I was gonna say, this is not that melodramatic.
This is your Law and Order. Maybe oh my goodness, give me some kind of hyper violent show, Mark, that you probably watch. What would you say? How would this compare to The Wire? Not okay. All right.
Okay. Okay. If you're going for hyper violent, how about The Shield?
Okay, I like it.
All
All right, I'm going to give you the last word here. Anything else you want to say about this show?
No, man, I think we hit all the points there. There's something there for everybody. Give it a chance. It's not your typical superhero show. It's dark. It's violent. It's sexually over the top sometimes. I think Homelander actually breastfeeds at one point.
It's awesome. Oh, Elizabeth Shue. Let me just speak to the craft real quick. I don't have a lot to say here. It's very well acted.
Carl Urban is great.
Nobody here gives a bad performance. There are no poorly written characters. Everyone's pretty spot on. It's really an A show. It's one of the best out there. I want to say it was like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Seriously, wow.
Let me see here 1 second.
Wow.
Critical 83% on Rotten Tomatoes out of 88 reviews. That was close.
Yeah.
A 7.5 out of 10.
Okay.
The viewer's mileage may vary. The boys' violent delights and willingness to engage in heavy, relevant themes are sure to please those looking for a new group of anti-heroes to root for.
Yeah,
I kind of think that misses the point there, but
there's probably a little bit too much dark humor, maybe that might be that might turn some people off. You know, I shoved a bomb up that guy's ass. The battle with Translucent in that electronics store was great, but that's all stuff that I enjoy.
yeah.
I could see somebody just kind of going, "Oh, that's a little too much for me," or not my thing.
I mean, I guess I don't know. I think my wife, who likes Downton Abbey and Reign and The Crown and all that, but also likes the Housewives of Yuts and Futs, and Snapped. Watches a lot of Snapped, Jesse.
Oh boy!
I'm a little afraid. I'm not going to lie.
Watch your ball sack, sir.
Yes, sir. I was asleep with a cup on. But I think that if she can get past some of the hyper violent stuff, that I think she'd find something to pull out of this that she would enjoy. Anyway, just getting back to craft, I think it looks okay. To me, when I say modern, I don't mean like Tron or anything, but it looks. I think they captured a snapshot of society very well in all of its colors, both bright and dim.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the folks that produced this did a really good job, and I'm anxious for season 2.
Same here, man. I can't wait till season 2. I'm glad at least I got to talk to you about The Boys. I knew you would dig this series. So season 2 will be a lot of fun when we talk about it.
I promise to schedule it closer to its actual drop date. You won't fool me again, Amazon Prime.
No, about that time they'll make the decision to do weekly drops.
I will throw myself out a fucking window. The schedule. Right. I need these people to attend to my schedule.
I know it, dude.
I don't know why it's so hard. Why is it so hard, she asked.
No. Title of your sex tape.
Anywho. So next week, let me say, this Saturday, we've got Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz 2. You don't know nothing about that, sissy boy.
Savages.
Exactly. Savages. So we'll be doing, myself and Robert Winfrey will be covering that. We're going to start our long, strange trip through heavyweight boxing on Monday the 25th. And then Jesse and I will be back for another TV party, another set of superheroes, the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah, baby. They ain't nothing to fuck with.
They ain't nothing to fuck with. And I do declare that cash rules everything around me. Boom, get the money. Cream, get the money. Why did I say boom? Oh. Adam Cole, baby. Get the money. You can't see it because this is audio, but I just kind of gave side-eye. So yes, Wu-Tang, an American Saga. The first season's now on Hulu. We're finally going to get around to talking about it. Survivor Series weekend is on Tuesday. We're going to talk Survivor Series and NXT. Brand supremacy. Jesse Starcher, that's what it's all about. 197 triple threat matches. That's what's going to happen.
Wow.
Everybody and every brand with every title is fighting each other.
That's crazy. That's insanity.
And over on NXT, you got the girls' war games, the boys' war games, the transgender war games, the animal war games, the bear war games.
Gender war games. What have they got to fight about?
Oh my God. The people who identify as women but are actually men war games. The people who identify as swans war games. Everyone's gotten a war games.
Oh, man. That's crazy.
This pay-per-view is going to be 12 hours long, and it's going to be just chock full of war games.
I swear to goodness, if it goes over 3, I will throw something. I will throw something.
So, it's only 4 matches, but those 4 matches have 97 people in each one, so that's the problem there. There's a triple threat with Pete Dunne. I think it's Pete Dunne, Damian Priest, and Killian Dane. Then
everybody's got to get their shit in.
Yeah. Then there's the women's war games, the men's war games, and Finn, and in a strange turn of fate, a one-on-one match. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's when one wrestler fights another wrestler. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I didn't know that it existed anymore.
And yeah. So it'll be Finn Balor versus Matt Riddle because Johnny Gargano got the broken neck.
No,
he got a case of the broke neck.
That happens.
He didn't protect his neck. Boom, get the money.
Protect your neck.
Yeah. And speaking of protect your neck, on the Metal Hammer of Doom, the most metal album, Wu-Tang Clan, Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to talk about. It's going to be a short week because of Thanksgiving. But we'll be back on Saturday with some boxing coverage for you. And then the first week of December, oh boy, we've got a slew of shows for you because the beat don't stop. We don't quit. We're the hardest working podcast and you've never heard of. We got Teen Titans by Jeff Johns, the first 97 issues.
I like it.
We've got a Damn You Hollywood for Knives Out. Have you seen the trailers for that?
No, I have not. You and Robert, I heard talking about it there last night, or whenever you guys recorded.
Ryan Johnson, the man that ruined people's Star Wars movie, brings you a whodunit with James Bond, Knives Out.
All right.
The guy that's playing James Bond, not the actor.
There will be a Cox Out reference during that podcast, I guarantee.
Now there will be.
Somebody, meaning you. I can't see Winfrey going that direction ever.
Did you happen to hear the one where he got so angry at one of the reviewers that he actually dropped an F-bomb?
No. This is about to happen, though. Was it on the last one you guys did, Ford versus Ferrari, or was it previous to that?
It was previous to that. I want to say it was It might have been Terminator, where he got so pissed he actually said "fuck," and I just about died.
The pillars of heaven fucking shook, my friend.
Yeah, oof, man. I honestly almost deleted the podcast at that point.
This is unprecedented. I don't know what to do with this.
The Radulich in Broadcasting is closed for business. It's not getting any better than this. Rings of Saturn, hit him, get him, with him.
Get him, jit him. Protect your neck.
Rings of Saturn, protect your neck. Cream, get the money. The Metal Hammer of Doom. But hoist. If you enjoyed Alexis Hana and I waxing philosophical about... I don't have my phone. I don't know what you're sending me.
That's fine. You can take a look at it later.
Okay. About She-Ra, Season 4. We're going to get together again and talk my first viewing opportunity for something on Disney Plus, because I may have bought the thing, but I didn't fucking stay home from work like the rest of the world apparently did. Who the hell has all this time to be binging shit on Disney Plus? Go to work, you fucking lazy assholes.
Gotta get that $6.99 worth in there, buddy.
I got you $6.99. It's in my shorts.
Hey, I haven't heard that in about, 12 hours.
I told a girl that today as I was leaving work. I was like, it's 6 o'clock. I'm about to be out. She's like, it's 5:58. I think you need to stay another 2 minutes. And I'm like, I got you 2 minutes. It's in my shorts.
She's probably like, it's probably not exactly the best thing to say to somebody.
The woman behind her, who's also very inappropriate at work, just kind of looked up and she was like, my problem with you saying that is that's way too much information than I needed to hear. Like, terrific.
Quit showing me dick pics.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I have to deal with. I've been fucking Me Too'd.
Oh.
No means no. Anyway, it also means Titans Season 2 on December 5th.
Very good.
That's me and you again, buddy. You ready?
Yeah, Titans Season 2. I've been itching to talk about that one.
Yeah, I haven't watched a single episode yet. I got to start binging that next opportunity I get. I have to go get my son. I have to get my son tomorrow night, Jesse. I have to go pick him up from my daughter's performance because he's not seeing it and neither am I. So I have to go pick him up instead of going to the movies.
Oh my goodness. Oh, no.
I don't get to see 21 Bridges or A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood because I got to go parent.
Yep, fathering like you should be. Well, that happens, man. Every once in a while, you gotta do that. I gotta
not have fun and actually take care of my children.
Mm-hmm.
What are you, some kind of a Nazi?
Sorry.
Speaking of Nazis, UFC Fight Night, Overeem versus Rosenstruck. We'll be doing coverage of that as well on December 7th. So that's it. That's all my plugs. I'm done talking now.
Hey, he's done talking. Ladies and gentlemen, go give the Radulich and Broadcasting Network Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts that we have to offer. Mark just ran down a bevy of podcasts that may just tickle your sack a little bit. You can check them out over there. Subscribe. Type in RADULICH on just about any podcast platform, and you can easily find us. And subscribe will get you all the shows directly into your feed. We're putting out, Mark Radulich, what, four shows a week practically, if not more sometimes?
On average, 4 to 6.
That's insane. You're an insane in the membrane, sir. But hey, I do a show on here called Source Material. We just mentioned it there. We talked about The Boys that's the first 6 issues with Gavin Napier of the Casual Heroes, and it was a lot of fun. We also have a recent episode of Unspoken Issues. It should be dropping here within the next day or so. And also keep an ear out for any more random wiki rabbit trails. May just happen sometime. I'll have to tie it in with the next show that we're going to be doing for Source Material maybe. But anyway, real easy 10-minute episode out there on Garth Ennis if you want to check that out. But other than that, Mark Radulich, it has been a lot of fun, a slice of life. Let's get the hell out of here.
All right. For Jesse Starcher of the Source Material Podcast and the Unspoken Issues and whatever he damn well feels like recording, this has been TV Party Tonight. Be well, be safe, and behave.
Buckle up, because Metro is bringing you the best deal in wireless. Switch to Metro and get your choice of 2 awesome free phones from top brands like Samsung and LG with huge HD screens and tons of memory for all your pics and videos. So hurry into Metro and get your awesome free phones only at Metro. Plus sales tax and activation fee. Requires port-in of eligible number not currently active on T-Mobile network or active on Metro in past 90 days. Limit 4 per account or household. Restrictions apply. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Is your cell phone bill out of control? Then this is your wake-up call. The new TracFone Wireless gives you unlimited talk and text starting at $20 a month, no contract, plus unlimited carryover data with active service. Yep, the new TracFone Wireless. Now you're in control. See terms and conditions at TracFone.com.